The situation at some schools around the country is a recipe for disaster. That's according to the Basic Education Minister, Motshekga. She says a lack of drinking water and proper sanitation are some of the concerns, with the worst affected provinces, of course, being Western Cape and Gauteng. She made the comments at a media briefing on Sunday. Let's discuss this now with Basil Manuel, Executive Director of the National Professional Teachers Organization of South Africa. Mr. Manuel, thank you very much for your time. Of course, this is a huge concern. I mean, we saw in Gauteng, at least, at some point it was even hospitals. And this is hygienically bad, or, it's a crisis, especially in primary schools.
Absolutely. Good afternoon, and thanks for having me. It is an absolutely critical situation, and a tragic one at that, because when you consider that an average school has almost 1,000 learners, and there are many schools much, much larger, they were never built sometimes for the size that they are. So whilst pupil numbers in a class have increased, ablutions, etc., haven't. So as soon as you have a crisis like water, and ablutions are then out of bounds, and there's no drinking water simply just to relieve your thirst, it then becomes a crisis. So I sympathize with the views of the minister as much as a teacher union. We don't want to see time cut out of a school day. We are battling at the moment with catch-up. But what is it that is then left for one to do when faced with this situation? It's either compromise the health or deal with something that you can manage a little better. So NAPTOSA understands, however we are concerned.
Yeah, of course. And, looking at the provinces that are mentioned, both the Western Cape and Gauteng are provinces with an influx of people who are looking for greener pastures. And, of course, the education in those provinces is considered the better, option compared to other provinces. So this obviously is even more of a crisis if it's not sorted out urgently.
Yes, it is. And particularly when you have functional provinces, you don't want to break down functional provinces to make them less functional. We have enough drama trying to build the others up. And whilst I think a lot of good work is being done in every province, it is sad when you look at Gauteng, when you look at the Western Cape, and these problems are now beginning to show themselves. And as you so rightly said, it comes as a blow to parents when you have now sent your child to what you think is a better place, and then suddenly there are these problems. And then the problems aren't isolated, because we must remember the human factor. There will also be people who take advantage of that. Both children who tell stories to their parents about the water crisis at schools, and sometimes schools will also overreact to situations. We don't want to see a school shutting down because there's no water for an hour, but the water crisis must be attended to. It's a human rights crisis on the one hand. So is education. Exactly. And remember, in education, we always talk about what is in the best interest of the child. So we need to see that we get this right. Excuses don't cut it. And the minister is reacting to something that is beyond her particular control. But she's also sitting in the halls of power, where we need to be cracking the whip more with the people who should be doing this.
Especially because she has colleagues that, she has a direct link to be able to get answers. And it's quite concerning what you're saying, Mr. Manuel, which is very important. Now the children and their teachers are forced to choose between hygiene, which is health, and their education. Because if there's no health, the school needs to be shut down. And then there's kids who play extramural activities, who need to continue to be hydrated. Schools are in communities. And so if the school doesn't have water, it means the community that children live in also likely will not have water. But also, would it not also mean that if the school needs to procure, Mr. Manuel, probably getting boreholes, etc., it means now money that was meant for certain things has to be redirected because it's a desperate situation.
You're so right. And we must remember that schools don't have ready amounts of cash lying around. And some schools have no money because they are deemed to be Section 20 schools, where money is managed by the department itself. And everybody is sitting and wondering, is this a long-term problem? You don't want to go and drill a borehole if the problem is going to resolve itself in a week. But if this is going to be a regular occurrence, such as load shedding, then you want to make other arrangements. But there's no guarantee with those two, because sometimes you drill a borehole and the water is not potable. You can't drink it. It doesn't solve the problem. Whilst it may solve the ablution problem, it doesn't solve the drinking water problem. And schools can't buy huge amounts of water. But an important point made by you is that if the school doesn't have water, neither does the neighborhood have, because we know that there are schools where there is no running water and children have to come with water to school, where they are managing that. And we fought long and hard to raise those issues and also to reduce those type of schools, and thankfully they are a reducing factor. However, it cannot be acceptable that today we have schools that have to limit teaching time because of that. And then look at the critical time of year we are in.
Yes.
There are matriculants that are wrapping things up. There are grade 11s. And don't forget about our grade 1s that must master those basics before we get to the end of the year. We can't afford to lose teaching time. And particularly, as I've said before, with the gaps that already exist.
Exactly. It's quite a concerning issue. Thank you so much for speaking to us here on eNCA. Basil Manuel, he is NEPTOSA's, he's from NEPTOSA, that's a teaching union.